That will never work. You can't fuck with yourself. Seriously? Don't. Oh my God, that's another thing you can do. That's bad. You probably should find other hobbies. You ever want to stop? Be happy while you're you don't bother me. I've seen better people. Do you really want to? And my third grade, give it up. Welcome to Horrible Writing, the rawest, most candid, in-your-face writing show on the interwebs because none of us have time to suck. Let's do this. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 12 of Horrible Writing. I'm Paul Sading, I'm your host, and I'm here to talk about horrible writing and why you didn't get an episode like you were supposed to a couple weeks ago. There was a break in the production schedule. Wasn't planned, but it was important. And it kind of relates to my outlook, my strategy as a creative. And I figured, hey, why not make an episode out of it? I've had a lot of things going through my head lately. Those of you who have been with the show from the beginning or who have gone back and listened to the entire back catalog may be aware of this. You may know me from audio drama and know this already. But I'm heavily involved in writing all the time, constantly. Production. With Subject Found, Diary of a Madman, Atheist Apocalypse, and Who Killed Julie. I've got 4 audio dramas that I'm actively engaged in and have been consistently. Family Portrait is a 5th audio drama that is about 10 episodes into writing the first go-around, and it's constantly in the back of my mind. On top of that, my patrons, those folks who patron Subject Found, Diary of a Madman, and Who Killed Julie, they get bonus stories every single month. Without fail, it has not stopped since the spring. One is a flash fiction piece, and the other one is a short story that usually ranges from around 3,000 words at the low level, all the way up to over 7,000 words on the high end. That's a lot of production, in addition to the 2 manuscripts that I'm working on, the 2 novel-length manuscripts. I say all that to frame the context that I'm constantly writing or editing the things that I've written. I've even recently joined a local writers group out here in Washington. So that has also kind of changed the way I do business. It's the first real dynamic writers group that I've ever belonged to. I've been part of 2 other ones, and those 2 were very small and led by strong personalities who really wanted to play arbiter. One in particular is a successful writer in her own right and has, sold 6-figure copy. So no joke, she knows what she's doing, and her opinion was always valued by me. But it always was her opinion, and I realized that I needed to get more than just one opinion on writing, on my stories, on structure. Learned some great things from her, but not necessarily what was going to be the solution long term. And so I was fortunate enough to kind of just trip across this group, and I've been enjoying it in the month and a half I've been part of it, but it does impact my processes, and I'm having to adjust. Professionally, I've taken on a new responsibility that has changed the way I produce, at least in the short term. I imagine I'll be back to a much higher level of output, But in the meantime, I've kind of had that ability taken away because I've just had to learn something new on the job, and it requires extra hours to do it. So I've lost the flexibility that I had before. I say all of that in the context of calling a timeout. I called the timeout unannounced to anyone, if anyone cared, and I was okay with it. In the old days, like a year ago, that would have really bothered me. If you look at the production schedule or the output for Atheist Apocalypse, you'll see that we had very consistent off seasons, and that was hectic. That was hard to pull off. And season 3 ended in December, and everybody's still waiting for season 4, and here it is, the end of August. Now, again, that's more attributable to the production end. It's hard to put these things together, and the producer, Brian Bristol, has enough of his own real life stuff going on, so he fits them in when he can, or it would already have been out months ago. At the same time, though, even with that flexibility, there's all these other projects going on, and it's constantly pulling from that creative energy, which is great because in a way it also re-energizes me. And when I'm tapping into that creative spirit, I'm also feeding the creative spirit. So I'm very much okay with it, that tapping of the creative spirit. But at the same time, it can get old. And I don't ever want to dislike writing fiction. There's plenty of things I've done in other aspects of my life that I've dove into and ended up hating. And this is not going to be one of those. This will be protected at all costs. So, as a writer, you have to be sensitive to your state of mind at all times. We are our own worst enemies. We are very hard on ourselves. We don't give ourselves much of a break. And I mean that in the work sense and in the mental reflective sense. We're constantly working. And I've talked about this in other episodes. We're constantly thinking. We're looking at the world and we're pulling inspiration, even if it's heartbreaking, from some of the things we see in the world. And it's all exhausting. And we owe it to ourselves to watch that, because nobody else is going to do it for us. Nobody else is going to truly know what you're going through internally. Therefore, they're not there to balance it. You have to do that. So I'm very sensitive to that, and I could feel that as I was working on a short story called Mr. Jones for my patrons. It's a drama. So dramas are different for me. And because, again, I write a lot of darker stuff, a lot of horror and dark thrillers. So when I write these dramas like Mr. Jones or May's Flowers earlier this year, when I wrote May's Flowers, I was excited. It's the first story that ever got me choked up, like tearful and all that good stuff. And I loved it. It really refreshed my writing. And I encourage every writer to go write outside of your genre, outside of your comfort zone. Even if you just trash it a week later, go do it. But with Mr. Jones, I came up with the idea when I was walking one day, as many of my ideas come from. And I was really, really enjoying it until I sat down at the keyboard and started writing it. I pumped it out in 2 days. It's almost 8,000 words. But the problem with it was that as I told the story, when I was done, I wasn't as excited about it as I was when I thought about it. And I realized, you're just tired, man. You're just tired. You need a break. So last week, we were getting ready for our last camping trip of the season, and I invested in that, like planning and making sure we were packed and getting excited and throwing the kayaks up to make sure that they were ready to go with us, and publishing the next episode of this show didn't get done. It just did not get done. In the old days, like I said a year ago, that would have bothered me. It doesn't bother me anymore. I needed that. And I'm to that point where in my writing and in my creativity where I'm fully doing it for me. I absolutely love how many thousands and thousands and thousands of you listen to everything that I write in those audio dramas, and hopefully that'll transfer over into the books when they come out. But at the same time, I can't be that production machine. I can't be a slave to the demand of it anymore. I'm not going to be. I'm doing this for my writing. We all, most of us, at least those of us who are realistic, know that there is no money in audio drama. So essentially what you're doing when you're spending 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 hours a month working on that audio drama, you'll never see a monetary payoff benefit from that. Whereas if you invest that sort of time in pumping out fiction and nonfiction books, at least you have an opportunity to make that back because the marketplace is different. We have grown up in a world where you paid for books, and it's changed a little bit, going all the way back to when used bookstores started popping up and authors didn't make any money on those kind of things, to nowadays where you've got Kindle Unlimited, allowing access to your books and you being compensated on a per page read basis. But the expectation is that you'll be paid. Audio drama is, yes, it's old, but this rebirth of it in the internet age, in the podcast age, in the modern contemporary audio drama has really grown up in a world where people expect things for free because it's all over YouTube. And those people who are successful on YouTube will be compensated through advertising. It doesn't translate over to audio drama. So it's one of the harder things that I've had to realize as an audio dramatist is I wanted to do these things, and yeah, I would love to be able to do them more, but the marketplace, the demand is there, but the willingness of the marketplace to compensate for those stories is not there. The mentality is, it's a podcast, we should get it for free. So as a creative, you have to consider those things. And this, I don't say this to scare folks away from audio drama at all. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And 7 out of 10 people in audio drama are wonderful people. But it's not, for me, it's not worth the heavy lifting anymore. And the books are. I've always wanted to be a published writer. So the timeout was necessary. And I felt for one of the first times ever, in a healthy way, the first time ever, because I've done it before and not had a problem, but it wasn't necessarily with the right attitude. But now it was completely healthy. I decided, I'm focusing on this camping trip, everything involved. I'm not doing anything with the website. I'm not doing anything with horrible writing. I don't even think I tweeted out a message that there wouldn't be one. Now, some people would say, yeah, well, that's where I'm at. I'm not making any apologies for it. And it saves me that energy. It has been exhausting having all of these things out there for so long now. And going, and constantly delaying getting books published. So, for the first time ever, I've been completely okay and not bothered by the fact that I didn't do anything with the show. To include, put that message out there. Now, yeah, I have the luxury of this being a very new show. It only came out barely over a month ago, so it's still very new. But I have that luxury and don't have that wide of an audience to worry about. Would it change if I got 10,000 downloads an episode? Maybe. I don't know. I can't answer that because I'm not in that situation. But right now, as things stand, I'm okay with that. And I have to be because, again, that creative energy is more important. I came back from that camping trip on Sunday evening. I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, and I have edited 2 flash fiction pieces. I finished the first edit of Mr. Jones, and I set up my new book, Chasing the Demon. I set it back up in Scrivener and started breaking it out for this to start the second round of editing on it. Which, if I do it right, it should be the last round of editing before I push it off for some reads. We'll see. So just in 2 mornings, I've got all that stuff done. Only another 1,000 words in writing. And since I started doing this podcast, I told you I would track that. So we're up at just over 31,000 words of writing. Since the beginning of July, when we launched the podcast, it would be much higher. But most of this time has been editing short stories and Who Killed Julie. I can't wait to get back into the groove again, to start writing again. It's something I want to do so bad. I miss it so bad. And that energy and that excitement and that thrill comes from taking that break. Taking that chance to walk away, taking that time out. I'll get back into the groove easily enough because the stories are there in my head, chained to the tree in the backyard, snarling, growling at me, trying to break the chains, trying to break free. So once I do get back into working longer form, it's not going to be a problem to find that groove. It'll be a little choppy at first, and if you're a new writer, that's something to keep in mind. But it's not going to be a problem, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's one of those things that I highly encourage other newer writers to keep in mind, that the groove comes back if you're disciplined. If you don't put things down and constantly give yourself an excuse why not to reattack it. Punching through, it's just like working out. Running, lifting weights, whatever you're doing, you got to punch through those hard miles. You've got to punch through that one more repetition, and that's where the payoff is. It's the same thing with writing. Those days where you are lucky to get 200 horrible words out, you still got to keep punching through. You got to do it the next day and the next day, and soon you'll find that you're back into your groove. I needed this to get back into my groove, to get excited about the stories again. What are you doing? What are your deliberate steps for yourself to get excited about your writing again? Could you list those? Could you give me a list of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them and tell me what you deliberately do to get yourself refreshed, get your writing refreshed, and get you excited to be doing it again? I ask you those things. I'd love to hear from you. So shoot me a message. Go over to paulsading.com. There's a contact tab there. Hit me up on Twitter at paulsading or at Writing Horrible, and let's have that conversation. If you want to hear more of what I do, again, go over to paulsading.com and you can find all of the show information there, along with ways that you can contribute if you would like to. Please leave an iTunes review, Apple Podcasts, my apologies, review, or Stitcher, or wherever you get this. Give it 5 stars. Tell other folks to go subscribe to it. Tell other writers you got to hear this. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening. Until episode 13, keep being epic. This has been Horrible Writing, and hopefully after this episode, you suck less than you did at the beginning. I am Paul Sading, your host extraordinaire. You can find me over on the Twitterverse at Writing Horrible and over at paulsading.com/horrible-writing. Until next time, suck less.